Welcome to the My Julie podcast. I'm your host, Minnie Latif, and the rumours are true. It does take a village. Let's do it. This is the episode you have all been waiting for. It's my solo episode about my Julie and how it came to life, and I finally get to address the question that everyone's been asking. Why Julie? Now you're going to find out. DM me, text, leave a comment. Oh, don't forget to subscribe, guys, on both Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to your podcast, and YouTube. That's how we grow the village. Support. See you on the other side. You have me for a solo session. Congratulations. You know, I get asked all the time, obviously, why did I call this space My Julie? The story is long, the story is complicated, but I'm going to take you to 2016. Actually, 2015, my apologies. I'm pregnant. I haven't told anyone. And I'm 6 weeks in. Actually, my husband knows at the time and my mum, and that's it. And when I was at the 4-week mark, I hadn't told my mum yet that I was pregnant, and she was having a check at the hospital for her breasts because something had come up in her examination and they needed to do a deeper test, and she was petrified, as you would be, right? When you get that call and go, something doesn't look right, let's go in. So I go to the hospital with her for the next test, and we're sitting in this room, and there's so many mothers and daughters sitting in there, just so many. It's one of the saddest rooms I've ever sat in. And as you're sitting in the waiting room and you're waiting, you can see the consultant's room, the consultation rooms on the side, and sometimes the mother and daughter would walk out in tears, and sometimes they'd walk out with elation. And in that moment, I thought to myself, no matter what happens, I have to tell her today that I'm pregnant, no matter what. But I waited. And so it was our turn, and we sat, and she got the news that we all wanted. She's good. So you take that breath, and you say your prayers and your gratitude, and we're thankful. And it was near, it was Royal Women's Hospital, so we walked down to Lygon Street afterwards. We walked into Seed, and in the baby section or the children's area, there's a whole bunch of stuffed animals, and there was this little rabbit, beautiful little rabbit, came in, a baby blue and a baby pink, and I said, oh, Mum, just pick one. And she's like, we're walking in the Seed for the adults, women's section. You know? My mum's she's quiet, but you can tell, like, she's so relieved. And she said, what are we looking at baby toys for? You know, she's like, oh, and I got, just pick one. And she goes, okay. And she picks the pink one. I said, you're going to be a grandma. I'm pregnant. And that's how she found out that I was pregnant on this day. And that's how I found out I'm having a girl, because in the 9 months of pregnancy, 40 plus 5 days, I never found out the gender. I just think that women don't have enough happy surprises and we plan so much of our life. So I was like, I just want that moment that I've seen on TV where you give birth with a hair blow waved and good makeup, and you get delivered this gorgeous baby and they say it's a girl or it's a boy. I didn't care either way. It was my first kid. So I'm 6 weeks pregnant and I start to bleed. Most women know that's not a great sign. I do go back to hospital and I get seen pretty quickly, and the emergency doctor does an internal ultrasound and says, you're miscarrying, come back in 7 days just to make sure that the baby expels properly, and if not, we'll do a curette. My mind's just going, this is not in English, like it doesn't make sense. I know what he's saying, but my body is saying that's not right. And up until this point, I've not been spiritual. Don't think I've been intuitive, but every ounce of my body is saying he doesn't know what he's saying. He's wrong. So I said, sorry, you're saying I'm miscarrying? And he goes, yeah. I go, like 100%? He goes, we're never 100%, but that's most likely. I go, well, give me a percentage. And he was quite thrown by my questions. And he goes, 80%? That's pretty high, right? Anyone gave you the odds of 80%, you'd pretty much take them. I said, okay, see you in 7 days. So go back home, and it's the week of my birthday. And a couple of years prior to that, my grandmother died on my birthday. God bless her. And I'm also her namesake. So she's a Minnie as well. Our full name is Minerva, but our nicknames are Minnie. So I've had the nickname Minnie from birth. And a couple of days after that hospital visit, I have this dream that I'm in my grandmother's house and I'm sitting in my auntie's bedroom. My auntie's name's Julie. And I can hear my grandmother in the kitchen and her voice traveling through the hallway. And she's saying, Julie, Julie, in the accent that she has. And it just knew. I woke up, I tapped my husband at the time, and I said, this baby's going to survive, and it's going to be a girl, and her name's going to be Julie. So on the 7-day mark, we go back to the hospital. And again, I have another internal ultrasound. And for those of you that have never had one, I hope you don't have to, because they're not pleasant, particularly when have this news that you're expecting to hear. And I don't know this doctor because he's an emergency doctor. And I'm sitting there and lying there. And he is looking at the monitor and there's tears coming down his eyes. And I thought that's quite odd. And I thought, well, obviously this isn't good. And I said, just tell me. And he said, you're the 20%. The heartbeat's really strong. And that's my girl, my 9-year-old that I have now. The rest of the pregnancy is what it is. But when I delivered her, I had this name that I really wanted, which is Julie, right? Because I dreamt. And my grandmother's my guardian angel and I'm her namesake. And why did she come to my dreams if it was, and it's a girl. I didn't know I was having a girl. And my mum picked the pink rabbit, from seed. And it's just like, that's what the universe is telling me. It must be Julie. But my husband at the time was like, I really love the name Skylar. And my husband is still from America. And Skylar is a somewhat a more known name over in the US, particularly from the series Breaking Bad. And I had never heard of it for a woman before. I always knew it as a male name. So that was the conversation we were having throughout the pregnancy, Skylar Julie, Skylar Julie. And my marriage was ending. It was pretty much over, but I was holding on as much as I could. And when I pushed finally, after 3 days, and she came out, found out it's a girl for the first time, and the nurse hands me the baby and says, it's a girl. What's her name? I looked at him and he said, you name her anything you want. And I thought to myself, if I name her Skylar, then maybe I can save the marriage. So I said Skylar, and I didn't give her the name Julie. Well, fast forward to opening My Julie, and I knew that this business needed not just some corporate-y, funky name. It needed a persona. It needed to be something that was more human. So when people interacted with us, they felt like they were interacting on a human level. So I knew it had to be a human name, a person's name. And at that point, I was like, there's no question that name has to be Julie. Like, I have given birth to Skylar and now I'm giving birth to Julie. So that's just done. But Julie ain't the newest name. There ain't no IP on Julie. You can't trademark that name. It's been used a lot. And so I had to add something to it to make it unique for IP reasons and trademark purposes. So that started its own journey. I kept trying to explain to people, like, in my Julie, you would get this done. And at My Julie, you could have access to these tools. And I kept referring to it as My Julie this, My Julie that. And that's naturally how the My Julie came to life. And so we're 5 years in, believe it or not. And I can't believe that because my previous company made it to 12 years before we closed it down in COVID. And I'm already halfway there pretty much with My Julie. And I feel like I just opened it yesterday. It came from this real organic need to bring community back in person. Through the isolation of COVID, I really, for the first time, I come from a huge family and we always have family gatherings and lots of friends. And it was the first time during this ISO period that I just felt disconnected. Like no one understood what I was going through, let alone what you're going through, because we couldn't connect in person. Yeah, the Zooms were happening. Yeah, the texts and the photos and stuff, but there's nothing like in person. There just isn't. You cannot connect with another human being intimately like you can in person. So I thought to myself, I need to create a space where you want to come in for the experience, because ultimately you can get any of the stuff that you find at My Julie somewhere else. But the reason you'll want to come into this space is the fact that you feel like you belong as part of your community, part of your village. You know how the old guys in the villages have the coffee shop that go to, or there's the pubs. Where do the women go to have that sense of it's just for us? So I developed this concept where I wanted to put all the things under one roof that I do as a woman to make me feel myself. Things like skin treatments, whether it's IPL, laser, all the things. IV therapy for my internal wellness, products that I love that actually work, not just for gimmicky sake. So everything is tried and tested. And, for those of you that know me from my previous world, I had brow and nail bars. So, of course, we have a little section for brows as well. And yeah, I get to have all the things done under one roof. And it just makes me so happy, because in order for this to function, you need a team, and each team member at My Julie is specialized in their area, and they're truly passionate about what they do, and they really care about quality. It's not just a job, just need a paycheck. It really has purpose behind every position. I mean, especially with skin, like we can transform somebody's life if they've come in with really active acne or significant skin pigmentation. We don't do things like injectables or filler. It's not our lane. We are more focused on skin health. And so that's why we do the IV too, because we really work from the inside out. In reference to women and feeling isolated, in particular, each decade, things shift in their lives. And we found that when women hit their 30s, there was the season of getting their partnerships really secured, building families, motherhood. That's a season within itself. 40s come along, it's often still in that season and transitioning to the empty nesting. And there was one area which quite shocked me actually, was women then going, oh, I've been doing my job for 20 years. Do I still want to do this for another 20? And that's a real jarring conversation to have with yourself. And say, if you've specialized in a particular career, can you just stop doing something after 20 years and just start something else? Who do you talk to about that? Who knows what I'm going through about that? Relationships. Esther Perel is infamous for saying most people will have 2 or 3 marriages. Some people will have it with the same person. Regardless of your status, you will have different types of relationships with partners, with friends, work colleagues, through your travels, seasons. Some people for a day, others for a lifetime. It doesn't matter how old you are, it's always a first for you. But it's not necessarily a first for someone else. And when you get to share stories, there's a lot of connection that happens and a lot of the removal of isolation. And I really went through it with that through COVID, just feeling completely unseen. And I just felt like there was no one that could truly get where my mind was headed, because unbeknown to me, I was undiagnosed with ADHD, undiagnosed with chronic sleep deprivation, dyslexia. I did have that diagnosis at that point. soon leading into perimenopause. I mean, there's so much stuff. This is after recovering from a divorce and recovering from, not recovering, but adjusting to being a single mum. I'm still adjusting to it because I didn't grow up thinking that single motherhood was going to be my narrative. But I have been a single mum since she was born, essentially. And so here we are going, sometimes you plan things and they don't necessarily turn out that way. There's a grieving that comes to that. But, oh my God, there's so much freedom in just letting go of all of your ideas of what life you expect it to be and the life that you allow to just flow through, and just let the universe sprinkle a bit of its magic and say yes more. Like, be just more open. And coming here in my Julie has just given me more. Oh my God, I'm so in love with women. I'm just so in love with them. I can't express enough how much my respect and admiration for the resilience that women have. You could sit down with any woman in your life and you ask them to tell you their story. So this is something that I wanted to scale, and this was something that I felt like we needed to find a way that we could bring these stories together. Why I started the podcast, why I built this space in like lounge areas where you can come in for a workshop with other people. It's not just for women, by the way. We obviously are encouraging all the men in our lives as well. So yeah, it's just a little bit of that. I think I might just talk about my backstory in business as well. So a lot of people think my name's Minnie. Sorry. And it is. A lot of people think my name is Julie. So I was like, oh, yeah, fair enough. Like, it's an easy mistake to make. The company's called My Julie. I'm associated to the company. I created the idea. But it turns out I've been called Julie my whole life because my auntie's name is Julie and my mum always mixes our names up. So my mum calls me Julie Minnie my whole life. And I didn't realize that well and truly after My Julie was up and running. So there's that side of it, and there's a bit of, yeah, like the universe is weird and cool in that way. But prior to that, I worked in corporate. My background is digital marketing. I worked in the online space from the age of early 20s. So I did a business marketing degree and worked at, the top company you would want to work with when you graduate, which is Ford. That's what we all wanted to aspire to. And after that, I worked for a company called Pacific Internet, which is no longer around, but it was an ISP, an internet service provider. And that's how I started to learn the world of digital. And there was no social media yet at that time. And then I was just getting really restless. I was in my early 20s. My parents were super strict and I wanted to have freedom. And the one thing that my mum in particular really valued was career. So if my career could give me the freedom to make more independent decisions, then that's what I was going to focus on, so just to have freedom. So I really pushed even harder, and I ended up working for iSelect. So iSelect was very early days. It was still in its corporate, I think it was navy blue and greens, very bank type brand. I was their first marketing manager there, and the founder and CEO at the time, Damien Weller, he gave me the opportunity. I was just such a young woman that was trying to establish her career, and I went in and rebranded it into what you see mostly today in the terracotta orange and the eye, and choosing a color that represented consumer versus a brand that talked in the language of banks and commercial. And so within a year, I resigned and decided, okay, now it's time to move to London because I've got my corporate experience and now I'm going to move to London. I don't have to pull beers because I have this skill set, right? I can work in the space of marketing in a corporate space. And I probably did it a little prematurely because I was doing really well at iSelect, but Damien was very understanding. About 6 months into my career in London, he sent me an email and said, you come back now, I'll give you your job back. And I just thought, and I didn't, but it just made me feel like for the first time, it was like I'm ever so grateful to him because I really felt like the underdog. I grew up in the western suburbs. My parents are blue collar workers, and I never thought that I would have such value in the corporate world. And that just made me realize, like, yeah, like I'm good. Like I'm good at what I do. I worked for Lloyd's TSB and then British Telecom then, and I had to come back for a cousin's wedding. And at the time, I discovered this thing called biosculpture in my nails in London, and I was getting it done at a really high end department store, John Lewis. And whilst I was there, I'd walk across like where I was getting my nails done in the department store, which did not exist in Australia. And I'd walk on the other side of the cosmetic floor and get my brows threaded. Didn't exist in Australia. And I went back home after a couple of years of being abroad just for 3 weeks to get to go to a family wedding, and one of my nails broke, and I could not find anyone in Melbourne that could do biosculpture like on that side, on our side of town. So the brain starts to work. I went back and I put this business plan together and realized that I'm going to open up a nail and brow bar in the department stores in Australia because it hadn't been done. So I wrapped everything up, moved back to Australia. I knew I needed an income in order to do that. And what's my background? Corporate marketing. Got a job at Medibank. Let that pay the bills so I could set myself up and, just buy a property and do all the things that I thought were really structured and what you should be doing. I just turned 30. And as soon as I emailed Maya, and I know no one at Maya, so I just went on their website and saw the contact us email, info@maya.com.au. And I emailed them and I said, I have a business idea, but cannot speak to you unless you sign an NDA, Maya. And they wrote back and said, send over that NDA. I just don't know if that kind of audacity would even work, or whether they would even receive that email in a day like today. But it did back then. Within 8 months of that email, I had opened up Ottoman 3 Nail and Brow Bar in Maya High Point. So that's how that started. And then in the meantime, I'm running 2 jobs. So I've got my corporate career over at Maya. I was their online marketing manager there, and I was going straight after work to the department store. I hired 1 brow artist and 1 nail artist, and weekends, Saturday and Sunday, I'd work there. And about 3 months in, it started to make some money within 3 months. I'm like, okay, this is good. If I could just keep doing this crazy, I mean, I've got no kids, I'm good. I can manage this. If I keep this up for about 12 months, I reckon I could resign from my corporate job. About 3 months in, I get led to the HR department at Medibank. And by the way, I haven't told anyone about Ottoman 3 at my corporate world. So I thought, oh God, they've found out that I've got a second job and I'm going to get in trouble. Not that I was doing anything wrong, but I don't know, like, why am I being called to HR? And I got called to HR because I got made redundant. And they told me about the redundancy, and there was a whole package of people that were being made redundant at the time. And they said, like, they put an envelope on the table and they slid it across. And they said, there is a counsellor waiting for you outside to talk with because it's effective immediately. We also have a consultancy company that can help you with creating a CV and helping you find work. And I was like, okay, thank you. So I had a moment to myself before I walked out. I opened the envelope and there is basically a check for $30,000 for my redundancy. And I put it back in the envelope. I walked out and I looked at the consultant that was there to help me if I chose to. And I said, I'm okay. And I walked out. And I had that extra $30,000 in my pocket to continue focusing. And in the first year of Ottoman 3, we turned over $1 million just in brows and nails. Now I can say, moving forward, and that was the GFC 2008, that can't happen, right? Well, it doesn't happen very often, and now it's 2025. We're a couple of years in and opening the bricks and mortar here at My Jewellery, and it's so much harder. It's harder because I also am a mum. It's harder because I'm also carrying 15, 20 years more stories, life stories on here that I'm trying not to keep inside. And it's harder because I'm also in perimenopause. You know, I have a lot of people that I know that are in peri and they're just like in their cozy era, which is really important to be. I wasn't afforded that luxury. I had to rebuild in the heart of the time where I just wanted to be in my cozy era. But I've pushed through and I'm still in it. I'm very much early doors, but I'm so damn proud of myself. I've had a lot of things go wrong in creating my jewelry and having to close Ottoman 3 through the pandemic. We had 4 locations at the time, and that was a huge part of my identity. So I had to go through a whole re-identity process. That was rough. I've cried a lot. I've laughed not enough, but I now understand the why. And the why is this. So keep on joining the ride. I cannot tell you where it's going. Who knows? But surrender, keep yourself open, and I will see you at my Julie. It's your village too.